morning. This is Barbara Ulmer with Transitions with Barbara Triple Language Master. This morning we have an amazing guest. His name is Kevin Mclemore. He is a very amazing person. He has an amazing gift and talent for book writing and many other things. And I want to find out more about him today. Good morning, Mr. Mclemore.
You can call me Kevin, and good morning to you, and good morning to your listeners. Hi, y'all. What's up? What's up?
Okay. Happy Sunday to you. What was your day like today? How did you start it? Do you have a routine?
I do not have a routine. I don't like routines. I do get up in the morning, um, and I write down the first thought that comes to my head. And sometimes it's something very inspirational. Sometimes it's a random word that makes no sense, but I do write it down. So I journal. I pray. Uh, since I'm that close to my bed, I turn around and I make it. So it's always that's the first task that's completed. I always exercise. And when I exercise, if you ever see me out in public exercising, if I've got my headphones in, I actually don't use headphones. I use a headset. There's a company called Aftershock. They make a headphone that goes around the ear that hits on the jawbone, so I can still hear sound, so it's just not in my ear. But normally I'm listening to either a book or something very positive. I don't like distractions, so I only put things in my head that add value to me. And I do like music, but music comes with dancing. And on this particular day, I do every Sunday, motivational Sundays with Kevin and friends. We meet at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And basically, the show originated from over 300 quotes that I had created. And we talked about how the quotes landed on me and how my perception interpretation. And because I had such a dynamic group of people, we opened the platform up to everyone. So it became Kevin and friends. And so each week, someone brings a quote, either something they've that original to them, or something that was created by someone else that landed on them a certain type of way. And we do a little round table. And then there's another group that I pop in when I can. It's called Black LinkedIn Clubhouse, which is a forum for Black social change. I hop in on that. And then the rest of the day, in my particular Sunday is setting up, because I record my podcast interviews on Mondays. So it's 12 to 4 and 6 a.m. No, all p.m. 12 p.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. So that's about it. We can talk all day. I do a lot.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I had the opportunity to enjoy your inspirational Sundays already several times, and it was very inspiring, and it kept me going all day because, like you said, several heads are put together, and so you have several thoughts that go with it. So, which is very beautiful.
I will tell you, your absence was missed this morning, and you missed a great quote. And I'll give you the quote since this is your show. It says, "As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others." And that was by Marianne Williamson. And that was a quote that we used today. We had a great conversation. You missed it. I don't know why you didn't show up. You had time, but it was good.
It was absolutely my intention, and I will be back next Sunday.
All right.
Yes, this is great. And then you already mentioned your own talk show, so I want to hear all about it. I see a bit behind you, like two fists and talking. So I would love to hear more about that as well.
Well, I have a podcast, and I have a podcast network. I'm the president of RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. And before I talk about my own podcast, I'll tell you how this started out. Originally, I was about to release a book called Indispensable Games of X's and O's, How I Learned Everything About Life I Learned Playing High School Football. It's my memoirs. It was supposed to be released March 2nd and of 2019, I believe, and then 2020, and then the pandemic hit and the world closed down. I was starting to release my original podcast, was Talking Wit, WIT, Kevin. And it never happened. And the reason why it didn't happen, because I became very active in the social experience with the death of George Floyd. I was speaking at rallies and trying to unite people, because when I witnessed what I was seeing in the street and the message that was being conveyed by the news media, I said, everyone's missing it. So you do not understand why the rally even, or the protest even existed. There was a void in our society that people ignored. And because of biases and prejudice, they allowed it to be. You know, when the Constitution says justice for all, they didn't include us in the conversation. When I say us, I'm talking about people of color, Black people, minorities, poor people, people that are living in situations uncommon to our white brothers and sisters. And so, but I also realized that in order to get social change, you had to bring people together. So as much as we wanted Black power, power is only limited by the sources coming from. And when we only represent, I think it's 15 or 16% of the population, depends on who's keeping the numbers. I know the numbers are low. We cannot make change. Dr. Martin Luther King did not make change by the 10% of the Black people that stood with him on the Capitol building, of 250,000 people that were there to listen to I Had a Dream. There was a mixed bag of people with the same purpose for social change. And I had to let people understand what a protest was really about. And if you have time, I'll break that down for you. But anyway, long story short, that conversation led into an introduction with two other people that were in radio. I knew I wanted to do a podcast because I wanted a platform in order to talk about the things I was doing. The reason why I said Talking Wit, WIT, Kevin and Son, instead of with, is because there's many subjects I can talk about. It may come as a surprise to many people that are listening to this, but I'm pretty damn smart. I spent over 40 years in the health and fitness business. I've been extremely successful. I'm one of the top fitness influencers here on the East Coast. And I can say I'm damn good at what I've done, but I'm also one of the top salespeople. I understand how to run business. I understand how to increase sales and educate people on not to be good salespeople, but to be great representations of their company, which providing an increase in the way you represent your product makes it easy for you to promote and sell your product. And so that book came about. Well, long story short, the pandemic lasted a lot longer than expected. My son, which happens to be a chef, was out of work. And so I brought him into the fold. So I rebranded myself as Talking Wit, WIT, Kevin, and I added Son to it. So my 24-year-old son, Theo, happens to be my co-host. He's more present, more absent than present, but there's still a seat on the table for him. And the only reason is because when everything opened back up, he returned to work. And because of lack of finances, places that normally were closed on Monday when we record are now open. So if his schedule does not allow him to do Talking Wit, Kevin and Son, Talking Wit, Kevin still continues. And then from there, long story short, we created 10 United, the podcast network. This is another void in the system. Out of 1.7 million people that are registered podcasters, less than 1% represents anyone that looks like you or I. Podcasting is becoming huge because of my background and experience that led me to 15 years of being associated with bringing product to QVC. I understood how to market a product, how to tell a story, and how important it was for brands to become personal with the communities. We've gotten away from putting a star with a product and thinking people will follow. People are right now, especially people of color, Black people, if you don't have a connection with the community, shame on you, because that's how we're spending our money going forward. And when I realized that there are a lot of people claiming to be experts at podcasting, which is a fairly new business, there was a lot of people taking advantage of people with good intentions. So I created the 10 United, bringing podcasters in and we teach them how to podcast. We do the heavy lifting because the same advice was given to me by a CBS talent scout. It said, you know, be the talent, find people that you want to talk to, let someone else do all the production, the editing, and whatever. So I have a company I partner with and I bought that does all the heavy lifting for me. They do all the editing, they do all the marketing. So anyone we bring into um, the 10 United Podcast Network has to be someone that has a like mind philosophy and aligned to what we're doing, helping other people. We don't look for the people that create havoc in their jobs, sit in the back room and talk crap about the employer, whatever. We have people that have a higher call to action that want to make a difference. You know, I have a morality clause in my contract. If you're the type of person that has a bias and feeling a certain type of way about someone's preference and who they love, who they wake up with, or the color of their skin, or their size, or whatever the case may be, or if you're attacking the Capitol building for whatever your political reasons may be, you're not someone that's welcome in this family. So, and that's how the 10 United. So we welcome in podcasters, we educate them, we teach them, we support them. They have skin in the game because they have to pay for the technical aspect of it, but we grow together. We market our company as one podcast, not as a separate. So when we put our numbers out there, we put our numbers out there collective. So if I have one podcaster and it's only producing 200 people or subscribers, and I have another one's doing 10,000, I add that two to the 10,000 and we grow that way. We are a caring company and everyone must win that's attached to us. And we're growing. We have just applied for to be a publication because I just took my latest book, Dating with the Full Deck, and it's our first product being produced from our own publication. So we're actually a publisher now, and that's it. So I talk too much.
No, no, not at all. I'm just trying to collect all the great things I can ask while I'm listening to you. Number one, you mentioned 10 United. Why the number 10?
Because numbers are important. I will explain to you the very generic version. I'm going to be very honest, so I hope not to offend any of your listeners. But when I was growing up in a Black family, it's a different conversation than what we talk about in public. My grandfather said, in order for me to be equal to one white person, I had to be 3 times as good. I chose the number 10 because I knew I was going to compete against people on a global platform of all races and all nationalities, all genders, and so forth. I wanted to make sure there was no excuse for me living a dynamic life. My uncles and coaches, and I don't know how this kept coming out when I was very young, kept saying, Kev, we got to go out and get the world ready for you. The world's not ready for you. I had no idea what that meant. I made my mistakes as a kid. I made my mistakes as a young man. I probably made a couple mistakes as an adult. But the one thing when it finally attached to my heart, that I had a higher purpose in life, that I made an impact on people's life, I started to realize why they said the world wasn't ready for me is because one, they didn't, we have trouble with people being blatantly honest and being authentic. We are all shadows of who we want to be, and we're not showing up as we are. And I've always said with people that know me either like me or hate me. I am very direct. If you don't want to know my version of the truth, my suggestion is don't ask it. I'm learning to get a filter on it because we live in a society that we're very fragile. The cancel culture is ruling everything. And if I said I don't give a damn, probably right. All right. But if you listen to what I'm actually saying, I'm probably right too. So.
I also had the opportunity to learn a lot of things from you already, which was very exciting, and also was honored to be a guest on your podcast. And I have been following it ever since. And you have a very difficult series out right now, a message that needs to be heard, but that is really shaking me sometimes to my core about sex trafficking. How did this come about?
it came about by accident. Um, there was we had a guest that had shared her story about domestic violence, and throughout my research, I started to learn a little bit more. And then I listened to a interview that actor and father Ashton Kutcher gave on Capitol Hill about his foundation, the Thorn organization. I think it's a Thorn organization or foundation. I'm not for sure. But anyway, if anyone's listening, just Google Ashton Kutcher's speech on Capitol Hill. Listen to the podcast interview entirely. It will change you. And if you're any person with a call to action that's higher just a conversation, it will make you move. Because when he tells you and he mentions and you watch the elected officials and their body language as he tells his story as a father, that there are men, wealthy men, that will travel out of this country in order to have sex with young boys. And then they come back and they're fathers, they're the leaders in the community and whatever. It almost makes you want to throw up. And then on top of that, when I realized that the Black community was turning a blind eye to it, and that our children, especially our young boys, were part of the product of choice, age 8 to 13, of white men that wanted to have sex with little boys, I said I had to do something. One, I had to get the message out there. But again, I had to tell the whole story because the people that were coming forth to be an interview were all white survivors. I knew of one that we had done on my other podcast, One Queen, Two Kings, where we showcase strong women, Charbonnet Patton. I brought her back on to elaborate, and we dug a lot deeper into this issue, which the interview is coming out next week. Very powerful. And I start to realize, when they say you find your why, and then you align your why with your purpose, I realized that everything I wanted to do in life, I've been saying since I was a kid. When someone asks you the day that you leave this earth, what do you want people to say about you? And I've been consistent. I want people to say I made a difference in someone's life, just someone's life, not many. This drove me at a much deeper level to bring awareness to this conversation to all people, to realize that anyone listening to this conversation that says this could never happen to my son or daughter, don't turn a blind eye to this conversation, because as long as your son or daughter has a computer or phone in their hand, your children could be a victim, and eventually 5 or 10 years from now will become a story as a survivor on my podcast or someone else's. So my purpose and the level of why I'm doing it added one more level, and this is paramount to what I wanted to do. So.
This is utterly amazing. And I also realized listening to your podcast that as a parent, it is very difficult to find out because the kids are still so many times unattended, like in school, with their friends. You don't know who else comes around with the friends that you know. And that often even women or girls are included in the trade. I guess that is very scary too, because you sometimes don't know as a parent who to look out for.
I would say as a parent, okay, of a parent of any child, no matter what the gender or choice of relationships your child has experienced, you got to love your child on a much higher level and go beyond your own biases. All of our children are at risk. Black, white, Chinese, Jewish people, what are all of our children at risk? As long as you allow the perpetrator, and I will say technology is a good thing, but the bad people have manipulated technology to a point that we've ignored it for so long. They're so far ahead of us. But there are companies out there that are using technology to track down these people. So it doesn't make a difference, girls or little boys or whatever the case may be. Sex trafficking, human slavery. There are companies for profit that are employing young children and paying them nickels and dimes and whatever, and which is the reason why QVC I like. a lot. I don't agree with a lot of things when it comes to um, diversity. When I was there, I don't know if it's changed because I've been away from it for a while, but it wasn't as diverse as it should be or claims to be. But I will say that if you were a vendor on QVC and you were dealing and manufacturing product outside the country, they took a visit to your factory. And if you were using child labor, they didn't do business with you. So that's something I commend that company for.
Yes, that is wonderful to know. You often also quote your grandfather, and I would love to know how this came about and how you use this in your life.
My grandfather is one of many people that were influential into my education. And if I told you as a child that I had actually listened to my grandfather, I would be lying to you because I heard him, but there's a difference between hearing sound and actually listening to what the sound was coming from. And I realized as an adult, I was actually paying a lot more attention than I actually was because it was a direct reflection. And when you're reading my book, I cite him a lot. I also talk about my Uncle Bill that was killed on New Year's Eve. I don't need to go on that story, but he was murdered. I also talk about my cousin Ronnie that stepped in when my father passed away. He stepped in a long time before my father passed away. I talk about my dad. I talk about my mom, my high school coaches that were very influential. I actually did an impromptu podcast interview with my head uh, football coach, Joe Russo. And if it had not been for him, um, we probably wouldn't be having this interview because I was headed down the wrong path. I was one of those troubled kids coming from a neighborhood that opportunity wasn't present, and I had made some choices. And I got chased home by someone trying to take my life. They were shooting at me. And I found out a couple of things. I said, because I asked God to get me home without any bullet holes in my body, which he did, that I was going to commit myself to his faith, to my faith. The second was I realized I had world-class speed and didn't know it. So these were people, if you read Indispensable Games of X's and O's, are people that have an impact on my life. And each and every day, I celebrate by giving them credit. I am not original. I am a copy of what was already created. The only thing that makes me original is my execution of the lessons of life I learned.
Yes, I had the opportunity to read your book too, and it was very inspiring how you put it into wording. And you are um, famous, I must say, for the way you can write stories. And it's very evident and amazing the way you put it together. You're just drawn into your stories as a reader or listener, which is utterly amazing. And so I love to see the way you executed this book. And of course, I also love your award-winning book, which initially, since I'm like a huge Christmas fan, I thought it's going to be all Christmassy, but it is so much deeper. And I would love to hear, I'm referring to Sprinkles, the True Spirit of Christmas. And I would love to hear how this book came about, which I
Well,
also enjoyed very much.
I'm going to flip the script just a little bit, and thank you.
Uh-huh.
And yes, Sprinkles the True Spirit of Christmas received in 2021 the Distinguished Author Guild Award. Um, so I'm honored and thank the people that recognize my book. That's much appreciated. But I'm going to ask you a question before I go ahead and talk about the creations of Sprinkles, because it almost didn't happen. What did you learn from the book?
I think the first thing that was impressive to me was the different kind of characters, which I really loved. And
What does that mean? What's a different type of characters?
they were not like the usual characters. There were characters of color that had a lot of death to them, which is something that I often miss. Like when I watch movies, for example, I'm a huge moviegoer and fan, and I often feel that characters of color don't have as exciting roles as other people. And in your book, they did, they were deep, like
Yeah.
yourself. And that amazed me. That's what I loved so much about it. And the way you put the spirit of Christmas into the book, like put a big smile on my face.
Well, thank you. Well, the first thing I'm going to say, and I would love to apologize to anyone reading the book. To say, well, if you're looking for Christmas, you're never going to find it. The book is going to transform you. It's going to make you feel a type of way. Being someone that almost graduated from college and not being able to formally read or write, you would have never have ever put together Kevin Mclemore, an author, in the same conversation. But I knew I was going to do this from the time I was in the third grade. In order for me to get through the education system, it would made it very easy for me to articulate what I had learned versus me writing what I learned. If everything had been with pen and paper, I'd have probably never made it to college. I got an opportunity to get college education because I was an athlete, and people believed in me. There was hope. That's why I say I adapted hope, helping other people every day. People believed in me. When I started to put pen to paper with sprinkles, um, my grandfather, Joseph Phillips, was an amazing storyteller, had an eighth grade education because he had to take care of his brothers and sisters as he was growing up. Every Christmas, the family would get together and the men would go out and chop down a tree. The women at that time, and please, people, this is, I'm 63 years of age, so remember the time. So trolls out there, don't get all excited and says, oh, we got something to jump on Kevin about. Had nothing to do with gender and had to do more with culture. And in order to understand culture, you need to understand the dynamics of a Black family. And we would bring the tree in and we would decorate it as dinner is being prepared. My grandfather always wanted the tree to have history. So our only responsibility besides the feast was to bring an ornament. So everyone brought an ornament, and my grandfather would randomly grab an ornament and he would spin these great stories. And I would sit there on the edge of my seat, and I wish I had been smart enough in order to, record or copy these stories. But when I had family of my own, I created Sprinkles. And Sprinkles came about not the origin, but how Sprinkles transfer, because the origin was the first written document I did in a creative writing course while I was in college, while I was learning how to read or write. This Sprinkles was the first. Fast forward, when I had my own kids, I started to tell this story. As my family grew and my kids got older, we had this Christmas party every year, and I would share the story. Someone one day told me, says, this story was so great, you should write it down and give it away as a party favor. I wrote it down, and what happened was, I'm a thinker, I'm a writer, I embellished on the story. The story that I written sucked. The story that I told was amazing. It was a fantasy. It was an adventure. And so what I basically did one night, I went into, after I put my oldest son, Alex, to bed, I laid on the bathroom floor, cut the lights off, and I recorded it. And the story that you are now reading is that recording. So I write the way that I speak. And so that's the reason why it's very easy to become engaged in the story, because of the way that I speak about the story. But the funny thing is, I almost threw it away. If it had not been for my editor, Salita Hodges, I sent it to her because she was editing another book for me. And I said, I wrote this, I don't know if it's any good and whatever. And I said, I normally give this away at Christmas. And she came back 2 days later and she says, I need two favors. She says, one, stop giving it away. This is gold. She said, the other, you need to publish this right away. So we put my other book on hold. Fast forward, we published that. And I forget the year that it became published. But I actually had written that years ago as a screenplay and shared it with a a writer by the name of Richard LeGrevinus. And he was a client at my time. At that time, I was training with Sports Training Institute in New York City. And when I gave him the manuscript, and 2 days later, came back, and I was a little nervous. I didn't want to ask him what he thought. And he says, well, I read your screenplay. And I said, okay. I said, what do you think? He goes, it was the worst screenplay I've ever read in my whole entire life. And I said, Richard, I appreciate you being so honest, and let's go ahead and do your next set. He says, no, wait. He said, you have a gift that no one in Hollywood has. He says, there are a lot of people that are recycling information and calling it a great movie script. He says, I can always find someone that can write a formula and make it pretty and whatever. He says, but I can't get anyone to tell a story. He says, you're a wonderful storyteller, a master at it. Continue to write the story. And he says, and your story will change the world. So the long and the short of the story, there you go. That's Sprinkles. Any characters in Sprinkles you identified with?
Well, the little kid was my favorite because I admired his bravery so much. You know,
Rudy.
yes,
Rudy. Yeah.
yes, he's my favorite. Like,
The surprising thing is, a major label, St. Martin's Press, turned that book down. And the reason why they turned it down, because they said at that time that the world wasn't ready for it. And when you said, because the main characters were people of color, they're Black. They were patterned after my experiences as a child. And for some reason, I don't know why Black families don't have Christmas. We have all these other amazing stories. So there is room for this story one day to become a staple in the viewing of what Christmas is and what the interpretation. But there's a strong message in that book, and it's kindness. And that's the reason why I have the hashtag find 1,000 reasons to be kind to someone.
yes, and I'm always cheering for the underdog, and Rudy was just adorable and brave, and
Oh, thank you.
I love the character. Yes, he's my favorite, absolutely. Yes, wonderful. And then you mentioned brand new, the book that is coming out. Can you tell us about it? Your newest book, you mentioned it earlier on.
My latest book, just as of 24 hours ago, the hard copy was actually released on Amazon.com. So you can get this book anywhere that books are distributed, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Apple, whatever the case may be. Dating with a full deck. I'm one of few people that took lemons instead of making lemonade. I made it champagne. I took my divorce and made something positive out of it, and to educate other people. And the reason why it's called Dating with a Full Deck, because when I became single, I had no idea how to date. All my friends were on dating apps and so forth, and I thought it was hilarious listening to some of these stories. But one thing that was consistent in some of these, and they call it ghosting, or people weren't getting second dates. And I realized there was a strong void in that part of the literature market. And so I wrote it to have conversations. There's 54 cards in there, 2 are jokers. The jokers allow you to go ahead and elaborate on a conversation that you passed on or didn't exactly talk about. So when you play that, you automatically agree. The key thing with this book is that, one, if I were the person to ask you on a date, I'm going to purchase 2 books. One I have to give to you. The other one I'm going to read. I ask that you not commence the date until 7 days after, giving both parties a chance to at least read the book. Bring the book with you. The person that is the asker or the invitee, you cut out the cards, there's 54 cards, and bring those cards with you. Now, the rules of the date, you can only have conversation based on the flip of a card. You don't talk about anything else. It eliminates small talk and eliminates those landmines that people put up that provide you with opportunities to screw up the date. This is an hour and a half of strictly nothing but entertainment and fun, and it gets to get a chance to know you. The psychology behind it is understanding human behavior. You're either going to reveal who you are 6 months from now on your first date, or confirm that the date that you're with is the date person you want to see again. So the book's all about how not to screw up the first date. And the kicker is sex is off the conversation. And the reason why I say sex is off the conversation, because everyone out there is making sex bad. You know, we got to realize man and woman, we both enjoy it. You know, as much as you don't want to admit it, men are like Olympic speed skaters. They want the gold medal and they'll do whatever it takes in order to get to it. And they'll go at it at world-class speed. Well, women are like figure skaters. They want the gold medal too, but they want to go through the long program. They want to go ahead and pick up the roses. They want to slide around, you know, to all the people and says, take it all in. They're on a different platform. But at the end of the day, when they come together, doesn't make a difference. Day one, 6 months from now, whatever, we do desire to be a lot more intimate. That is off the table. Let's not talk dirty sex or whatever. Let's just get to know each other and let's not screw up the opportunity for a second date. It's by far one of the most exciting books I've ever wrote. It's one of those books, once you get it, you have to share it. It's not one of those things that I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on social media trying to get someone to read the book, because you're going to learn so much more about you as a female when it comes to relationship. And you're going to understand men as men approaching a female about relationship. And guys are going to find out how just dumb they are, because we know nothing. You guys hold us to too high of a standard. And the book is real. It's funny in some parts. Some makes you think, but it also teaches men how to respect and treat a woman. And it also teaches a woman how to respect herself in the presence of a man. How did I do?
Yes, this is beautiful. You said absolutely yes. Um, this is so amazing. And then there's something else that is very exciting about it, because you did all the cards yourself, including the illustrations, which you also did with sprinkles already, because you're also an amazing artist. I have seen some of your art. And did all the questions come to you? Did you collaborate with many people? Um, how did you do it?
Well, let me backtrack a little bit. I did all the artwork for Sprinkles. I did not do the artwork for the cards. I actually, they're stock. The conversations that are
Yeah,
on the cards,
yeah,
they come from 183 notes. I interviewed over a year and a half, 1,500 people of all walks of life, rich, poor, straight, gay. I forget what the other ones are. I think there were only two transgender people that I interviewed. I interviewed people that were labeled players. I interviewed them. I interviewed people that had were living happily ever after hooking up on the first date. I interviewed those. I interviewed people that had fallen in love with people while they were already married to some other people and made the choices, whatever. And that's the reason why I say very early on, and understanding human nature, we are so fast to put something good or bad on it, or judge people, that we don't look in our own yards. Most people are in a relationship that they're not being fulfilled, or they're too much of a coward to get out of the relationship. Most people are in positions in their single life that they're so damaged from another relationship, they won't allow another one to grow. And some people have just settled for whatever they have in front of them because they thought their choices were limited. And then a lot of people that are just screwed up and not good for anybody. So I have to be very honest with people, because I know people personally that have married someone and that spend every single day of their life with someone in their social circle that they're madly in love with, and that person's madly in love with them. And that's the reason why I say they're too cowards, too much of a coward to get out. And sometimes that web is because I stay for my children or whatever. But at the end of the day, unless you come into the world with another person as a twin or multiple, we leave this world alone and we enter the world alone. In between that is your life. You've got to understand that little mark until you get a second date on there. You have to determine your happiness. And if your happiness is not popular with someone else, at the end of the day, no matter how much I talk about what you did or whatever, I come home to my life, and my life is my life, and your conversation cease to exist. We need to quit at validating other people's lifestyles and then stifling our own.
so with the help of the cards, it is also funny sometimes the way you say it, right? So that it can take some nervousness away.
You know something? I never thought myself to be a comedian, but I'm sarcastic, and sometimes my sarcastic wit is funny.
Mhm.
Um, and if you can get someone laughing, you can gain their interest. That's the reason why you see all these comedians with these beautiful partners, okay? Because they make them laugh. It's what's in the heart that makes a person. The shell right here,
Mhm.
beauty will that will fade. That's the reason why cosmetic surgery is so important. And I'm going to tell you, hey, there are a lot of doctors that are messing up a lot of people. I see every day in the gym booties that don't belong on people's butt sides because some doctor had a good sense of humor and he needed to make his car payment, and people walk around with it. But I just tell people to be genuine, to be authentic. And the book's not designed for you to find happily ever after, or Mr. and Mr. Right, or find someone to hook up on Friday or Saturday night. The book is designed for you not to do anything that will screw up the chance for you to have a second date. That's all it's about.
This was wonderful. I like this very much. Yes, and that makes a lot of sense with the humor. I also feel like the unexpected is the most exciting thing, which happens with your cards, because you pick a card and then you see what comes of it,
Yeah.
because there are so many generic approaches, and I love when somebody does something unique. I think that gives you a different angle, and you just, yeah, it draws the attention to a person because, well, that's new, I've never heard this. How did he come
Mm.
up with this idea? And I think
Yeah.
that's so cool
You,
about it.
you want to hear something funny?
Yes.
I was on a platform yesterday with
Uh-huh.
a lady that was a doctor,
Yes.
and she has this book on dating and whatever, and it's skewed more towards the women
Yes.
versus men.
Yes.
And I'm listening to the conversation. It became the men's uh, women's hater club. It's
Okay.
because men are narcissistic and all this whatever, and I'm listening to the advice they're giving, and it's just like one subject that came up: ghosting. All right. Why didn't he call me back? Why did he wait? Or after 6 months, he just stopped communicating with me. And she gave this scientific proof because the way that um, our hormones and how much testosterone we have and whatever. And I'm listening to this and I'm going, I have a lot of respect for your profession. But when she told me she interviewed 100 people and I interviewed 1,500 people, does that make either one of us a better expert? But I said, I do know the truth. Okay. You ask any man why they stop calling you. It's because they're cowards. Okay. Because we know what's going to happen if we tell you the truth. We're going to get this long dissertation and we're going to have to defend our position. And it's easier just to go away and disappear and hope that we never run across you again than it is to defend our position, because you guys have a lot bigger vocabulary and understanding what words do than men. We are totally defenseless. That's like giving us a gun with no bullets and said, fire away, and you're loaded with a machine gun. Okay. You don't need a doctor's degree to realize common sense that you guys expect way too much of men. We're simple. We are very simple. And you guys hold us to a standard that we're never, ever going to reach. I'm not saying don't have standards, because you need to, but you need to understand a man, if I go out and I provide a life for you and I do the work and whatever, we're just looking for a safe haven. You think it's sex? We're looking for someone to come home and understand that, we've gone to do battle. You guys have basically went out and you're a lot more progressive, a lot more successful. So one of the elements of us being able to provide is gone. It's like, where do we know our place in the heart of a woman? Because right now, you don't need a man. You don't need a man to bring another child into life, save enough money. You can go down to the lab and come home with a child 9 months later. Matter of fact, your friends are so close to you, they'll carry your baby, for you. But you know, you guys will expect way too much of us. And then you don't know how to train your own dragon. It's because when you go on the first date, you give us way too much information. And guess what we do? We take that information and we use it against you. And all of a sudden you realize, well, I slept with him too soon. I did this, whatever. You're telling us everything that we need to know So we don't have to do any of the work. If you want a man to appreciate you, let him do the work. Let him discover what makes you happy. And like Valentine's Day is coming up, and I'll say this to every single woman, don't ever tell a man that you don't want anything, that you have everything, and be disappointed when he does nothing for you for Valentine's. I am guilty. I do not celebrate the holiday. Do not celebrate the consumerism of Valentine's Day. When I have someone in my life, I celebrate every day with Valentine's Day. So anyone that's connected to me, don't buy into it. I'm not buying your roses, not getting you a card. I don't do that because I'm going to do it every single day. And if you got that type of man, celebrate it, because if you let him go, 3 of your friends are going to look for his number.
Oh, yes, that's a lot to take in and a lot to learn from. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I like the idea too. When 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 he daily shows appreciation in different ways, it doesn't feel as forced as if it's only on the big day that was chosen commercially.
Right,
Yes.
right.
So that is wonderful. Yes.
All
So
right.
it's going to be exciting to see what comes of the book when people take them to dates, each of
Yes.
them with their own book and the deck. This sounds really exciting.
I can't wait. And what I'd like to do is have a group of people, both male and female or whatever, because I want to see how it crosses over with um, people that have partners, and just sit and and do it on a podcast where I have 5 or 6 people, maybe 8 people, and
Yes.
just talk about how the book resonated and if it was fun. I've already got a vision in my head of how I want to do it live, and
Okay.
that's going to be fun. So I'm open for speaking engagements on any of my books.
Yes.
Um, um, and I'm waiting for Hollywood to come up. Matter of fact, I'm not waiting for Hollywood to do sprinkles. Okay. What I'm looking for is a Black female producer that is open to creating a platform that there's a lot of very talented animators out there that have never gotten a job that is graduating. I want to put a lot of first timers onto a wonderful project and make that dream come true. That's what I want.
Beautiful goal.
And that sprinkles the true spirit of Christmas.
Yes, it really is. Because, like you said, hope, it's written all over it. And
Yep, helping other people every day.
yes, absolutely. Which you practice. That's why you are like um, a coach for many, I think, right? Your knowledge goes with you and you share it.
Yeah, I do have a couple people that call me a mentor. I say friend, they call me a mentor, that we have daily conversations. I have one guy we call the go-to guy. I think you met Ife, and I'll give you an idea. The other day he called me. Matter of fact, I'll back up a little bit. Um, I called him one day because I hadn't heard from him the other day, and I said, "Answer me this: does the sand come to the water, or does the water come to the sand?" And he goes, "The water comes to the sand." Based on your interpretation, I said, "If you call me your mentor, why am I calling you?" And so he called me the following day. He goes, I'm calling you now. Every single day, I ask him a question. So yesterday, the question was, um, do you understand what wealth is? And most people are going to tell you dollars and cents, this, that, neighborhood you live in, and so forth, and however they want to describe it. And so I said, I need you to write this down. And I think I posted this on my Facebook page. And hopefully I spelled it right, because I have a little ADHD. So a lot of times it doesn't come out the way that everyone interprets it. But unless I come back and edit it, it's not right. But I said, wealth is not what you deposit into your bank account. Wealth, true wealth, is what you deposit into the lives of people that you're surrounded with. That's true wealth.
Yes. So that's what I see with you and your son. You're sharing wit and wisdom. So it's also generational.
Yeah,
Know your legacy somehow.
I'm going to tell you, I love my kids. I love them good, bad, indifferent. I don't have a favorite unless it's Monday. I'll pick one. Um, but I love being a father. You know, um, God, I can't even begin. I love being a father. I've got wonderful kids, and some people may not think they're so wonderful, but it's my right to say I've got wonderful kids. And that's Alexander, that's Lakeisha Camille, that is Jillian Nicole, and that's Theo Joseph, and even Connor Noel. I love my kids.
That's good. Yes. So that is very, very interesting. Is there something that you always wanted to be asked and you have never been asked? Because you are asking many questions on your side, since you have your own show, you are on many shows. Has there ever been something where you said, I've been on so many shows, but this I was never asked, and it is really important for me to share?
If oh God, everyone wants to say they want to sit down and talk to Oprah.
Uh-huh.
And if I had one ask to be, that would basically be um, for no child to go hungry,
Yes.
and that every child that's deserving, that has a mother that's struggling, to provide them with a world-class education. I didn't say first class, I said world-class. But my one ask would, if I had to sit down with one person, I love Michael Strahan. And to be honest, I would just like to not be interviewed by him, but just to kind of hang out because he works on the same schedule I does. He's got 7 different jobs. I've always wanted to be the first Black male to be a talk show host on television. I don't desire that anymore because I don't deal with the politics very well. I'm too honest. But I have a lot of respect for Michael Strahan, a lot of respect. So that's one question. If someone asks me what I like to do, he's one of many people that I would like to sit down. I've already sat down to Winnie Magdala. I didn't get a chance to sit with her husband because he had passed. And I've been around a lot of great people, both young and old. And your podcast is going to run way too long if I talk about Kelly, which I feature in the book. I don't know if you've read that part, but Michael Strahan is that guy. I have a lot of respect for him, and he's genuine. And he's a good father. He's a good person. I don't know him personally. I just know what he puts in the world, and he's helping other people. Not to say there's not a lot of other athletes that are out there that are helping people, but there's a lot of everyday people that are helping people, which is the reason why I do my podcast. Reason why I do People You Should Know. I don't want to interview celebrities. I want to interview people that are making a difference every day. They go unrecognized, and my platform is that platform. Talking with Kevin and Son.
Yes. And it's a good ask, and it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, he might just listen in. You never know, right? Make a wish,
Right.
send it out in the world,
Well,
and you will see what comes of it.
well,
Yes.
trust me, Michael Strahan already knows I'm out there. He just hasn't figured out a way. But dating with a full deck is going to land someplace on his desk. I don't want to do Good Morning America. Matter of fact, I actually mentioned when I talk about teams, I showcase the team of Good Morning America because they do something that a lot of morning talk shows don't do. When Michael Strahan left Regis, whatever that show was with Kelly, and went over to Good Morning America, um, in television, they have these people that monitor how many times you pronounce a word right or enunciate, how many the names or whatever, they keep track of that. But they embraced Michael for who Michael was. And I would like to say Robin, his co-host, had a lot to do with it. That's another person I would like to sit down with. I can make a list of all these wonderful people. And the reason why I have that list is because they're genuine people. They're good people and they're caring people. They look like me. Deion Sanders is another person I want to sit down and talk to. Tim Tebow is a person I want to sit down and talk to. Julia Roberts is a person I want to sit down and talk to. Now, there's a couple of people that look like us that I don't want to have any conversation with them because they're batshit crazy, but they're celebrities. I don't want to have that conversation because it turns into a debate. I can talk all day long because I like talking. That's why I do podcasts.
That's excellent. I want to go back to the definition to your big goal of world education, world-class education. Being an educator myself, that of course made me curious.
When I say world-class education, it's
Mhm.
providing an education that will transcend on a global basis, not the formal education that's being taught. I call that a government education. Is because our current education system is set up just for our employees to be entry level managers or um, employees of some other company. A world-class education allows you to explore other cultures, um, allows you to experience other lifestyles, and allows you to know your social responsibilities to the planet. And and through entrepreneurship, I think that's the only way it's going to happen. Corporate America is just predicated based on strictly profits. I'm not saying all companies are like that, but profit is the bottom line, not making a difference. There are corporations that are changing that paradigm, and I salute them, and I would love to connect with them. But when I talk about world-class education, world-class allows you to make an impression on the humanitarian approach and make a difference. You know, I've said this a couple of days ago. You can spend $30 billion to put Michael Strahan up in space for $14.5 million. All the efforts that people are doing for sex trafficking that need safe houses for people, whatever, for $30 billion, you can put a safe house into every last one of the cities across the United States. So I think some of our resources and people that have the greatest of resources are not channeling that money to where it does good. I'm not saying that I wasn't one of the 30 million people that watched Michael Strahan go up, but I watched not because of the person that created the plane. I didn't want anything to happen to Michael Strahan. And to be very honest.
Yes, this is an interesting aspect. Yes, absolutely. So would you have some specific people in mind with whom you would collaborate to give a world-class education?
You know something. There's a child out there in need.
Mhm.
That's the conversation I want to have with that child. There are
Mhm.
people that have resources that we need to sit down and do things together. I don't believe that one man can do this thing all alone. I think it's going to take creating allyships in order to do this. I give it my hats off to Melinda Gates. You know, she put a lot of money into Black colleges. You know, there's 107 Black colleges out there. That number depends on how you want to interpret that, because a lot of them are populated by Hispanic or other brown skinned people. But historically, if we took our most talented academic students, our most talented athletic students, and put them in one of the 107 colleges and universities across this country that are predominantly Black, the landscape of education would change literally overnight. Think about that. Think about where the resources will go. It's just that we've got to change the mentality of what's been imposed on us 400 years ago when they brought us to this country in boats, in the halls of boats. Just say that just because it's a Black institution, you're not going to get a world-class education. I've got friends that are graduated from Harvard and Yale that I'm a lot more successful from, and I graduated from one of those historically Black colleges or universities. It is not the education that makes the university. It's what the application of that education does to the life of the individual that goes out there and brags about, I graduated from this university. These people, and I will tell you, people that are successful, no matter where they graduated from, were destined to be successful. You know, we need to quit putting our children in debt with an education that won't support the debt.
That
Don't
is
get me
very
started.
important.
Don't
Yes,
get me started.
I can see that is very important to you. Um, and as an educator, I've also experienced athletes, of course. So I'm very impressed also by the way that you decided, even though you kind of had the liberty not to do too much education because you were an athlete, that you chose for yourself, I want more for myself. And now you are an author and an award-winning author. Um, and that I think is very inspiring also because especially in the Black communities. It's often like if you are talented, if you can become an athlete, that's the goal. Just focus on it, you know.
Well, I will say this: not all athletes think this way. Sometimes through sports, that's the only way that you're going to get out of your present situation.
Yes.
I knew very early on in life that as a child, I had no control over my environment. But I also knew that when I got control of my life, because I knew I was going to grow up. And once I got control, I was going to do things differently. I've learned very early on, and I say this a lot to young people: two choices, chance and choice. Every single day that you live, you take a chance to either enhancing opportunities in life and putting yourself in the position to benefit from that, and then you choose to take advantage of those opportunities. Now, in the event that taking that chance puts you in harm's way of life, then the actions support that choice. When I talked to a young man that was incarcerated for murdering his best friend, and he says, "I'm not guilty," I asked him why. And he says, "I never meant to kill my best friend." He says, we had a situation that we were delivering drugs, and it's supposed to be a transaction. They made the decision to keep the drugs and rob the person they were delivering the drugs from. When the robbery went south and the store owner pulled a gun on him, chased him out of the store, his getaway driver sped off. He in turn pulled out a gun and shot twice into the side of the car, hit the guy in his leg, severed an artery. He bled to death. Now he's doing time for the murder of his own friend. And he said that morning that his gut told him just to stay home. Your gut is your best sensor to tell you right from wrong. If your gut says you're going to do it, you shouldn't do it. Trust your gut. The chance and the choice. And look at what happened with the action. He's spending life in prison. The same way with me going to a historically Black college, doing my work, creating great relationships with the academia, creating great relationships with the student body, taking positions to be socially active in there. Could be an activist, but socially active in there. And then providing an opportunity for someone to give me an opportunity to provide for my family, or for me to provide an opportunity where I can start a business that can provide for my family, and me being a positive representation of not only my community, but also my culture and my race. Chance and choice, simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that puts it well together. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you today, having you as a guest on my show. How do people find you best?
The easiest way to find me, you can reach me on Instagram, and it's Kevin Mclemore, Mclemore. And the best way to contact me directly, and I'm going to say this: most people won't give out their personal phone number. If you're calling me just to talk, don't call me. If you're calling me with a higher call to action, then dial this number, 610-212-9870. You can also follow me on my YouTube page, RMK Productions wait a minute, let me back up, RMK Productions and Network on my YouTube page, and you'll see all my motivational Sundays, my podcasts, the 10 United, we're all there. Or you can reach out to us at info@rmkproductions.net.
Excellent. Thank you. I will put this all in writing for my listeners as well, because there's a lot of wealth that they can take from it. And this is going to be amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yes. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to your listeners. You guys have a dynamic host here, so please follow her, like her, encourage her, but most of all, you need to share her content, because that's the only way that she's going to grow. If you share it, likes are just not enough. Your actions have to be higher. And I'll thank you guys for having me on, and I'll shut up now. Fade to black.
Thank you for that.
All right, talk to you later.